1 in the morning, March 1st, 1910. A massive slab of snow ripped two trains from the tracks at Wellington, Washington, and hurled them 150 feet into the canyon below. 96 people were dead before sunrise, but the last train to leave that depot never truly stopped running. Across 3 continents, ghost locomotives keep returning to corridors soaked in tragedy, and the reason may have nothing to do with the supernatural. Snow had buried the Great Northern Line for days, trapping 2 trains and nearly 100 souls at the Wellington depot. On the night of March 1st, 1910, as the clock crept past 1 a.m., a thunderstorm swept through the Cascades. Lightning flashed against the bare slopes of Windy Mountain, slopes left raw by years of clear-cutting and fire. In a single instant, a slab of snow half a mile long sheared loose. Survivors described a low roar, then the world dropped away. The avalanche struck with the force of a freight train, tearing the passenger and mail cars from their tracks and hurling them 150 feet down into the chasm below. Coaches rolled, windows shattered, and sleepers never woke. Depot staff scrambled from their bunks, lanterns flickering in the storm. Rescuers clawed through snow and splintered timber, but most found only silence. Over the next days, crews dug for bodies, some never identified. Some recovered months later as the snow melted. The official toll reached 96 dead, 61 railroad workers, and 35 passengers. Coroner's inquests listed cause after cause: blunt force, suffocation, and exposure, while survivor testimonies painted the chaos: a sudden flash, the train shuddering, then darkness and cold. The town of Wellington itself would not survive the aftermath. Its name was changed, its population scattered, and the ruins left to the elements. What was left behind? Twisted rails, collapsed sheds, and the memory of that night became a warning. Here, the cost of industrial ambition was measured not just in steel and timber, but in lives lost to a mountain's unpredictable power. Deep beneath the Hoosac Range in western Massachusetts, a different kind of disaster unfolded, one that stretched not over minutes, but decades. The Hoosac Tunnel, measuring 4.7 miles, was among the most ambitious railway projects of the 19th century. Its construction began in 1851, but the price paid in human life would earn it the name the Bloody Pit. Nearly 200 men died before the first train ever passed through its darkness. Death came from every direction: explosions, cave-ins, flooding, and toxic air. Nitroglycerin, introduced here for the first time in American tunneling, proved both a breakthrough and a curse. In March 1865, a premature blast took the lives of explosives experts Ned Brinkman and Billy Nash. 2 years later, a gas explosion in the central shaft killed 13 more, entombing them 538 feet below the surface. Laborers described weeks when every payday brought another funeral. Names crossed off the payroll, never to return. Contractors shifted blame, engineers pressed on, and the state eventually took control as private firms went bankrupt under the weight of mounting casualties. The tunnel's ledger became a grim record, each page a tally of injuries and deaths, each year another layer of risk. Workers called it the Bloody Pit, not out of superstition, but as a matter-of-fact warning to those who followed. When the tunnel finally opened in 1875, the trains ran through rock haunted by memory. The scale of loss lingered, not just in local legend, but in the very language of the place. A reminder that progress here was always shadowed by the cost in human lives. Each April, as dusk settles along the old rails between New York and Springfield, a peculiar anticipation lingers among night shift trackmen. Stories circulate of a train that never stops, a procession shrouded in black, gliding silently through the dark. The legend traces back to the aftermath of Lincoln's assassination in 1865, when his funeral train covered over 1,600 miles, its route mapped in sorrow and ceremony. By 1879, newspapers in the Hudson Valley began printing accounts from railway workers, men who claimed that On the anniversary of Lincoln's death, a spectral locomotive would thunder by at midnight, trailing a shadowy cortege of mourners and silent soldiers. These early reports always tied the sightings to April, echoing the real funeral journey's timetable. Trackmen described chills in the air, clocks stopping as the train passed, and a hush that blanketed the landscape. The press, eager for sensation, amplified these tales, giving rise to annual expectations of an unearthly visitation. Over time, embellishments crept in. Later retellings spoke of a blue glow radiating from the engine, or skeletons standing at attention. Yet physical evidence tells a different story. Surviving paint chips from the original funeral car, analyzed in 2010, revealed a deep maroon pigment, no trace of blue at all. The so-called luminous effect likely sprang from moonlight on black crepe and the flicker of oil lanterns, not any spectral radiance. The myth's persistence owes much to the men who kept the rails, night workers whose isolation and routine made them keen observers and sometimes unwitting storytellers. Each April, their accounts would resurface in local papers, reinforcing the ritual. The legend, born from grief and repeated through ritual, transformed a historical event into a recurring drama. The line between memory and myth blurred, and the rails themselves became a kind of stage where history's shadows replayed their mournful journey. In the dim tunnels beneath Stockholm, a different kind of ghost story took shape, one born not from disaster, but from the strange gleam of metal. In 1963, Swedish transit engineers rolled out a prototype subway train, the C5. Unlike its painted red siblings, the C5 was left unpainted, its aluminum skin catching every flicker of fluorescent light. Commuters called it Silver Pylon, the Silver Arrow. For most, it was simply a test car, a practical experiment in corrosion resistance. Yet to late-night riders and station staff, its arrival felt uncanny. The train seemed to glide without sound, its silvery body reflecting tunnel lights in a way that made it appear both present and not. By the early 1970s, stories began to circulate in Stockholm's tabloids. Some claimed Silver Pylon would appear when the platforms were empty, stopping at stations not listed on any schedule. The most persistent rumors centered on Kymlinge, a half-built station on the city's Blue Line, abandoned before ever opening to the public. People whispered that if you boarded Silver Pylon at the wrong hour, you might find yourself alone as it sped past familiar stops, only to slow at Kymlinge's deserted platform. There, the doors might open onto darkness, and those who stepped off would never return. Transit authority files show nothing out of the ordinary. No missing persons, no unexplained disappearances. But the legend grew, fueled by the train's rare appearances and the media's appetite for the uncanny. Night shift workers recalled the hum of its motors echoing down empty tracks, while commuters described seeing their own faces reflected back, pale and distorted, in the metal walls. In time, Silver Pylon's image became shorthand for all that was strange and unaccounted for in the city's underground, a reminder that even the most rational infrastructure can give rise to stories that refuse to fade. At Bethnal Green Underground Station on March 3, 1943, a single misstep in the darkness set off Britain's deadliest civilian disaster of the war. The sudden wail of anti-aircraft rockets sent hundreds surging down the narrow, poorly lit staircase. Without a central handrail or clear markings, a woman carrying a child stumbled near the bottom. Within seconds, bodies piled up. 173 people died, crushed together on just 13 steps. The Home Office inquiry blamed the design, citing uneven stairs, dim lighting, and the absence of safety rails. Today, a memorial tablet lists the names, preserving the memory of a tragedy born from structural failure and collective panic. At Vancouver's waterfront station, the story of a headless watchman named Hub Clark lingers in the corridors, a figure said to pace the platforms long after midnight, lantern swinging, searching for something lost. No maintenance log or city record confirms a fatal accident matching the tale, yet staff over the decades have whispered of footsteps echoing in empty halls, or a sudden chill in the dim light near the old clock tower. Folklorists point to the legend's persistence as a kind of warning, a reminder of the real dangers that once haunted railway work, preserved now in the form of a restless apparition. In the end, these stories serve as memory devices, binding the risks and losses of industrial expansion to the places where they happened, ensuring that the cost of progress is not so easily forgotten. Steel and stone may crumble, but the stories persist. Reminders of human cost beneath progress. Each haunting marks a real place where safety failed and memory clings. Ghost trains endure because risk and loss still haunt our infrastructure. Subscribe for more investigations into the shadows behind the systems we trust.